Hello again. So it's a few days since I last recorded a video, and that video was my journey with PTSD. In that video I said I would do a follow-up with a Q&A because I appreciate the videos that I included were very raw and just recorded, sort of live and in the moment, and perhaps I didn't divulge into different areas. And I have to say I'm quite overwhelmed by the amount of messages that I've received. So hopefully this video is going to be helpful and informative. I guess just a precursor that, again, although I used to be a mental health nurse, like, I'm not the health professional that you should be taking all of your advice from, and obviously everything I say take with a pinch of salt. This is my own journey, it's my own perspective, and it's not necessarily 100% applicable to everybody else. So I'll just get stuck into some of the questions. I've never done a Q&A before, so bear with me, and if there's anything that I don't do well, pop it in the comments below so that I know what to do better next time. Okay, so how do you recommend finding a therapist? This is a really good question, and I've actually had people text me saying who live locally to me, would I recommend my therapist? And I absolutely would. However, I don't think finding a therapist works that way. I wouldn't say that one size fits all for everybody, and if I've had a positive experience with one therapist, that means it's the right person for somebody else. There's so many different types of therapy out there, and I accessed trauma-focused CBT because I wanted to very rigorously delve into things that happened in my childhood and throughout my teenage years. And for me, my trauma-focused CBT was based around me doing some reliving sessions of re-exposure to those traumatic events that I experienced. That might not be appropriate for everybody. There's different trauma-focused therapies out there. So there's EMDR, which is all around, you can either use eye movement or sort of different tapping techniques, and that sort of focuses on the physiological symptoms of trauma. For me, my symptoms were more around having really distressing nightmares, night terrors, not sleeping. That then started to seep into the day, and I was having sort of flashbacks and small scenarios that shouldn't have evoked certain emotions in me because I was finding them triggering, and I would react in a sort of trauma cycle way to those scenarios. So for me, it was about the cognitive behavioural side of the trauma that I wanted to work on, and that's around looking at, so cognitive behavioural is your cognition, so your thoughts, and behavioural is sort of our actions, and how each of those trigger different emotions, and our emotions trigger different actions, and so on and so forth. So for me, it was trauma-focused CBT that I wanted to go for. If you are looking to do something privately, then make sure whatever therapist you go with is BACP registered. I popped a lot of information about that on the information from my last video, and I'll do the same on this video. But I looked at different BACP registered therapists locally once I knew exactly what therapy I wanted to do. I spoke to one of the managers for a local counselling centre on the phone and talked about what I wanted to achieve, and she directed me towards the best therapist for that. If you go through NHS talking therapies, they are able to assess you, and they will advise you as to which therapy would be best for you, and they'll allocate you a therapist that way. What advice would you give to someone who is currently feeling the way you felt? I mean, if you saw my previous video, then you'll know that the way that I felt sort of was very up and down. It was definitely not linear. It wasn't linear on the way down, and it wasn't linear on the way back up. One thing I will say is, on the days where it feels like I just can't do this anymore, that's okay to feel that way. It's scary, but that's naturally where our minds do go when we're overwhelmed, so don't let those thoughts scare you too much. I think sometimes it feels a little bit hopeless if the people around you don't fully understand, and for me that was a bit of a well, it was a big bump in the road really, when I sort of turned to the people that I'm closest to, hoping that they would be able to understand what I was feeling, because I was describing it as well as I could. I was even drawing out diagrams of my schemas and my emotions and my thoughts and my beliefs, but nobody is ever really going to fully understand what's going on, and it's okay that they don't. That might make you feel isolated, and it may make you feel like you're on your own on your journey, but ultimately it is only you that can actually make the changes. Yes, the people around you are the support system that you need, but those changes and that help that you really do need is going to come from somewhere within, with the right support around you, with the right therapist to talk you through it, and potentially even the right medication to help you get through. So yeah, sorry, it's a bit difficult to say about somebody feeling the same way I felt, because I had such a massive spectrum of feelings over like an 8-month period. The next question is, what medication are you on and how do you feel about it? So for me, medication is something that I really wanted to avoid. I was feeling low in mood, but I didn't want to start an antidepressant because I knew why I was low in mood. I was low in mood because I'd opened up this Pandora's box of emotions, but things got to a point where I wasn't sleeping. I was crying every day for long periods of time, and I just really wasn't myself, and I'd never ever had medication before, and although I'd refused sertraline from the GP, when I ended up in A&E, because I had a particularly awful day, they gave me diazepam, which is, I need to be so careful what I say about these things because my journey is different to other people's. So they gave me some diazepam because I was having a panic attack that lasted for quite a few hours, and I hadn't slept by this point for about 5 days, and I actually, out of nowhere, had this horrendous nosebleed that just came out of both nostrils, and I was just covered in blood. It literally just came out of nowhere. I think it was just the amount of stress and pressure that I was under, and that worried my family, and they took me to get some help that day from the lovely team, the mental health nurses in A&E, and they gave me diazepam. Sorry, it's so raw still. It's been like 5 or 6 months and I still, yeah, it's not hard. The diazepam that they gave me in A&E, for the first time in, I'd say, about 2 weeks, made my brain go quiet. That's the only way I can describe it. It was like having a blanket put on my brain. I'd never had anything like that before, and it was a bit of a humbling moment of, I think up until that point I didn't realise how much I needed it until the nurse was like, you need to have this, because I literally couldn't engage in a conversation with her. So after about half an hour of that kicking in, I thought, oh, okay, this is helpful. And then I've talked to her for about 2 hours about everything that had happened, because this happened 2 weeks after I'd started my therapy. So for me, my therapy really did open up a lot. I unlocked memories in my mind that I didn't know I had. So I hadn't slept for a long time, and she talked to me about starting a medication called mirtazapine, which is an antidepressant, but it's also really good for sleep. So I agreed to start on a very low dose of that. That then made me really sedated. So for about a week, I can't really remember much that happened, because this medication made me extremely sedated. So I've actually just come off that after having it for about 4 or 5 months, I think, because I was having some side effects from that. And at the time, it was like the lesser of two evils. The side effects were sort of worth having that improved mental health and sleep. But as I'm progressing with therapy and things, sorry, excuse me, I felt like I didn't need to take that anymore. I have got a whole sort of journey and video log of that journey that I'll share later, further down the line. So one thing I would say is medication does serve a purpose, it does have its place, and I was so resistant to starting it because I was like, I know why I'm feeling this way, because I've started therapy and things are going to get better. But if it wasn't for the medication at the time taking the edge off it, I would have been crushed by the weight of my emotions and the lack of sleep. So yeah, there's lots of different types of medications out there, and I personally do feel that I benefited from it. How much does talking to people outside of formal therapy sessions help you? That's a great question. If you don't know yet, I'm a massive oversharer, so here I am, not just talking to people outside of formal therapy, but posting it online on YouTube. So for me, it does help. I am an open book, and I, in my mind, would rather people know that I'm going through something, and that might explain why I might not be texting them back, or I might do or say something that they think, oh, that's a bit of a strange thing for Charlotte to do. But for me, I've always been a person that likes to talk. Having said that, I think it was difficult for the people closest to me, because I was divulging information about things that they didn't know, and that I'd kept to myself for a long time. So I think they had sort of like secondary distress, and because you do hurt when the people that you love are hurting. So for me, I do find benefit in talking to other people. I think it's worthwhile pointing out that it's also very difficult being the person supporting somebody who's struggling with their mental health as well. So massive shout out to my family and friends. You know who you are. I did try and keep my circle close and small, because I went off the grid entirely for 3 to 4 weeks, and just didn't respond to anybody about anything. I just didn't know how to function normally. So yeah, that was only a short period of time, but I have to say I've got amazing support networks in my friends and my family, and as my therapy has progressed and I've been able to share what I've learned about myself, I can actually see it's helping them too. So that's also a real positive about sharing things with other people. Okay, I watched your full video. I really hope you find light at the end of the tunnel. Thank you. I am finding light at the end of the tunnel. Things are moving in the right direction. I've just been to Aldi with my nan and granddad, and I actually just literally had a moment of my head tilting back and laughing my head off at the things that they were saying. So the positive moments are coming back. Yeah, I think it's definitely not a straight line, but things are definitely moving in the right direction. What helps you stay positive? Great question. I think it's easier to be negative, isn't it? We are literally hardwired that way. As humans, our brain is hardwired that it is easier to be negative than it is to be positive. So sometimes for me, being positive is a conscious effort. And if I'm quiet online, it's because I'm not feeling positive. You'll hear from me on the days where I am positive. I think I've spent a lot of time understanding what makes me feel like me, what things I enjoy, and whose company I enjoy the most. And I'm getting more comfortable with saying no to the things that I don't enjoy or scenarios that I don't think will fill my cup, basically. So sort of having this time out from life has really helped me to know where I want to be. So on the days where I'm struggling, I have a list of 20 things that I know make me feel good. So I won't be forcing myself to go to the gym on those days. I won't be forcing myself into social situations that I don't want to go to, but I will sit and do some colouring or painting or play the piano. If the sun's out, I'll be out in nature going for a walk. Beyonce, full blast, dancing in the kitchen in my pyjamas on my own, always does the trick. Yeah, that's one of the things that I've learned from the book that I'm doing called The Artist's Way. So you have to write lists of things that you enjoy and make you feel like you. So that's how I fill my cup back up on the days where I'm not positive. Okay, a couple more. How are you doing now? Did you manage to find the work-life balance? I love your videos. Okay. Thank you so much for saying that you love my videos. That's really kind. I love them because as a child growing up, we used to make videos all the time. So I just love having them for me, and actually I'm running out of storage on my laptop and my hard drive, so YouTube is the next step for me to just have access to them myself. So feel free to dip in and out as and when you're ready. But thank you so much for saying that you love the videos. That's so kind. I am doing better now, thank you for asking. And did I find the work-life balance? Well, I ended up quitting my job with 1 month's pay and no plan. But that is largely due to the fact that my caring responsibilities increased very quickly and suddenly. And whilst I am on this journey of putting myself back together, I did not have the headspace to show up and be there for my family in the way that I needed to be and concentrate on giving my work my everything. So when it comes to work-life balance, I'm totally in the life side at the moment. But I've had a really amazing 10-year career in the NHS so far, and I know that that's there waiting for me when I have the mental capacity to go back to it. This ties in nicely to the next question. I know you were a mental health nurse, but what is your role now? So my role now is currently being personal assistant to my nan and granddad, Joan and Jim. So they are my colleagues and grandparents and everything in between. just for a little period of time, as my granddad had an operation and my nan needs a little bit of extra help at the moment as well. So, but in the interim of that, I don't know if I've actually ever mentioned it online, but I used to be a mental health nurse, and during the COVID pandemic, I went back to university through the NHS in something called the Graduate Management Training Scheme. So they train you up to be a manager. I was on placements as an operational manager and project manager for 6 GP practices during the COVID pandemic, and then ended up leading a vaccine site where we used to give out 2,000 vaccines a day. So that was something that I never would have had the opportunity to do otherwise. That was really cool. I then had a bit of time in I then had some time as an operational manager in emergency general surgery, which was so inspiring. And then I moved into strategy and business planning. And after I finished the scheme, I stayed there. So I became a band 8A manager in the NHS, and my role was strategy and business planning for 2 hospitals where I live. And it was the most amazing job that I didn't even know existed in the NHS. So I would work with different groups of staff and patients at times to develop strategies and business plans, or conduct service reviews in different niche areas of the trust. So aseptic pharmacy to, what are some of the others? A patient experience strategy, estates, research and innovation. You name it, I got to work in the most interesting parts of the trust, and with some really amazing staff members to identify ways that we could improve and move forward, and sort of advocate for change, which was just amazing, and I loved it. We were a small team, and although the sort of stress and pressure of the role was nowhere near what I used to feel as a mental health nurse, where I felt directly responsible for patients' lives and staff safety. This role it required a lot of, it just required you to be on the ball, because we would be really giving a service a full MOT, looking into financial side of things, looking into patient experience. Like, we literally would write 100 and something page reports on the service and then go and present that to the executive team. So some of those projects were worth like multi-millions of pounds. So, I needed to have my head in the game, and when things got difficult for me in my personal life, I was really motivated to get myself better, to get back, and it's obviously a job that requires you to really be able to concentrate, and unfortunately I wasn't getting better as quickly as I thought I was going to, and things were taking a lot longer, and then quite suddenly we got the news in the family that caring responsibilities would need to increase, and at the time I just felt like I needed to just put a pin in my career. So grateful for the experiences that I had and where I got to, but I'm still not, I'm not aiming to be 100%. I don't think I'm even at 80% at the moment, and I would need to be to go back to work and to be able to do what I need to do in that role. Such a privileged role to be in, to be able to help staff and services the way that we did in the team. So for now, that's on hold, and I do spend a lot of my time with my nan and granddad, as well as helping out with a few of the family businesses. So I'm very privileged to be able to sort of put a pause on things, So yes, that's my role at the moment. I just need to charge the camera, I'll be back. Okay, camera's back on charge. So one thing that I did want to talk about that hasn't come up in the questions, but I think has been an important learning point for me, is around the definition of trauma and the difference between that and sort of generalised anxiety disorders. And I think sometimes in our society we can sort of bat around these words in situations where actually they're not appropriate. So sort of using the words anxiety and trauma incorrectly. And I've been listening to so many podcasts and watching so many videos and reading so many books over the last few months. But for me, the person who has hit the nail on the head and has given a really useful explanation of trauma and definition of that is Dr. Gabor Mate, and that was on a podcast with Jay Shetty. So I'll put the link for that below because that was a really, really good listen for me. So I just wanted to read out what his description of trauma was, and hopefully it might help somebody else out there to hear it too. He says, all trauma is stressful, but not every stress is traumatic. So sometimes people use the word to refer to difficult experiences, which is not the same as being traumatised. And on the other hand, where it really matters, which is in the area of health, that you and I are both concerned in, whether it's physical or mental health, trauma is not understood nearly enough. So he talks about trauma as being a psychic wound that leaves a scar. It leaves behind an imprint in your nervous system, in your body, in your psyche, and then shows up in multiple ways that are not helpful to you later on. In its basic sense, trauma is a psychic wound. And if you look at the nature of a wound, on one hand, it's raw and open and it really hurts. So when someone touches that wound that you sustained a long time ago, but it hasn't healed, you'll react like you're just being tormented all over again. This happens in relationships all the time. That for me was so helpful in understanding why I react the way that I react to small scenarios. Because it triggers old wounds from my childhood and my teenage years that haven't healed. So one thing to point out is people say time is a healer. It is, but it's what you do with that time in order to heal. So if you don't heal in the best way that you can, he goes on to talk about how scar tissue forms, and that tends to be rigid. So when people are traumatized and they don't deal and heal with it, that can cause their behaviors to become rigid. It doesn't, so that scar tissue doesn't grow, and trauma very often stops emotional growth and development. It's very raw and painful. So the trauma is not what happened to you, but it's about the pain that was sustained because of what happened to you. The good news is that you can deal with the pain. We can't change what's happened in the past, but you can deal with the pain that you feel because of it. So that to me was extremely helpful. So yeah, for me, that sort of really is it in a nutshell. I don't think it's a good idea for me to openly talk about my traumas, but because my diagnosis was complex PTSD, it is very intricate, can't say it. It's very intricately entwined into my personality, my thoughts, my behaviours, my emotions, my reactions. And and the cognitive behavioural therapy feels like the right direction for me to pick apart my brain and how I want to act and respond and the type of person that I want to be. And I am unlearning unhelpful coping mechanisms that I adopted when I was younger, and that takes time. So the last few months have been centred around rigorous and difficult therapy sessions and a lot of wellness activities and spending time doing things that are really kind to myself, trying to just get back to basics of thinking about what things I'm putting into my body and the most important things in life like sleep and exercise and fresh air, really stripping things back to the basics. I have been recording videos on and off throughout this period. As you'd probably imagine, I've only really recorded the videos on days where things are going well. So I have put myself out of my comfort zone on a couple of occasions to go to social events of people close to me, and I'm only just now feeling comfortable enough to go back through the videos from this last year, because it's been extremely painful to go back and watch myself being as upset as I was. And what a unique experience to be able to do this. Like, how random that I started making these videos in 2023 and then had a breakdown in 2024. Who would have known? But I am a chronic oversharer, and I'm used to being in front of a camera. I have been for my entire life. My mum and dad thankfully recorded so much of my childhood that I have the most amazing memories to look back on, and there's friends and family from the past, and you know, like my mum's obviously not here anymore, to be able to like hear her laughing, and she's normally saying, Bruce, stop filming me, but yeah, I am finding this whole video diary process therapeutic in itself. So if you've made it to the end of this video, thank you so much. This is the first video that is going to be going out live recorded now, because I was recording for 18 months before I decided to make my YouTube account public, so it's taken me some time to sort of catch up. So if you've just found this channel, then hi, there's 20 something videos for you to go back and indulge in. I'm not a celebrity, I'm not rich, I'm an average person, just trying to romanticise parts of life. So if you've enjoyed this video, please drop me a little thumbs up, hit the subscribe button, and do check back in, because from here my videos will feel more hopeful and positive. The last video I made was very raw, and I purposefully took videos from the space of a 3-month period and put them into one, so that moving forward my videos are of a more positive nature that people are going to want to watch. I appreciate if I'm coming on here and crying every few days, then that's not going to float, is it? That's not going to be enjoyable for anyone. Yeah, I hope this video was helpful, and give me some time. Once I've caught up with the video diaries that I have been making, I would like to make a few more interactive videos like this in real time. It is Wednesday today and this video is supposed to go live today. However, I've been out with my grandparents. They've left the house for the first time in 2 weeks, and we ended up going shopping, and it's taken a massive chunk of the day away, but that was way more important. So I think this is going to be going live tomorrow on Thursday. So thank you so much for checking in, and I appreciate I didn't answer loads of questions, but if you do have any other questions, then I'd be happy to answer them in the question box below. So thank you so much. I hope you're all doing well. And if you're not, then that's okay too. These things do not last forever. I know they feel like they do, and it feels like it's been forever since you last had a good day. But with the right intentions and the right support, you absolutely can get better. And that's coming from somebody who hit rock bottom and didn't believe that things could improve. So hang in there. Sending lots of love, and I will see you soon.